Hi, Richie, and welcome to the Break Even podcast. Really pleased you've given up your time to come on board. To kick off with, literally, can you tell us a little bit about, your past life, so to speak, when you used to play football and any sports you were involved in?
Yeah, so from a very young age, Ian, I think football was what I always class now as my first addiction. It was the thing that I went to when I was struggling in life. I would always be kicking a football against the wall, and I wasn't like growing up as a child. I wasn't disadvantaged. I had nice parents. Brought up with morals, but football was the thing where I just felt alive. That was
Yeah,
the reality, and I was able just to escape some struggles at school
yeah,
by playing football. It's also when I look back now, it's also where I found my worth, found self-worth. It's found where I found respect. People, because I was good at it, people wanted us to be on their team.
yeah.
So that was a massive part of my
So you
childhood.
felt wanted.
Yeah, totally. I just belonged. I think it's probably the thing I've come to now is it's such an important thing in life is to feel like you're part of something.
Yeah,
And that's what the football gives us, being in a team, being in them sort of surroundings, and then also when you excel at something, it also helps you feel self-worth. So that was a massive part of my childhood. Luckily, when I was 16, I managed to sign like a what was a scholarship then, at a professional
yeah.
football club, and that was my dream come true. Um, didn't pan out the way I thought it was going to pan out, and I got injured, and I didn't play for about 9 months because of a broken jaw. And it was in that period there where I didn't have that escape. I didn't have that, football to go and play, and that's kind of when the gambling started for me. So,
So you
um,
swapped one escape to another one where you felt comfortable.
100%, yeah, and I say that all the time now. That's what I got from gambling. It was escape the chaos that was going on in my head. And it wasn't that it was bad, it was just I struggled to deal with feelings, emotions. Um,
Did gambling give you the same highs as what the football had? Because obviously you were playing at quite a good level.
uh, Not really. For me, it was escape. I
Yeah,
think there was always the anticipation of winning.
yeah,
What your life would be like. I think
yeah,
we all get that. That's chasing that little buzz
yeah.
that you get sometimes, but um, it just shut the noise off for me, Ian, is probably the best way I can describe it.
Right. And
I had a
what sort
lot.
of gambling was it, Rich, when you
I
first
was
got
in the
into it?
boogies. I
In
was
the
in the
bookies?
boogies all the time, yeah.
Yeah,
So because I was involved in a football club, football gambling was a thing then.
yeah,
It wasn't sort of forbidden, and it
yeah.
wasn't frowned upon if people put a bet on and stuff back them days. And because I was injured at 17, I was getting sent to the bookies to put bets on and stuff for people, and that
Yeah, I
was
mean,
the
and
introduction.
that was a day when they used to have card schools on coaches, and it was a real normal thing to do, wasn't it? Part of what you did, part of the culture. So once
100%.
you got into it, Richie, how severe did it get for you, and when did you notice it might be getting quite severe, your gambling?
Very quickly. So it became an obsession. I talk about obsessions all the time. I had loads of them through as a child. Collecting cards, all that sort of stuff. I was always obsessive, very obsessive about that type of stuff.
Yeah,
Football was an obsession, and then the gambling became an obsession. So from 17 to 18, it was like my little escape because I couldn't play football. But actually, it was becoming more than that. It was every penny I was getting, which wasn't a lot of money then. Being on a football scholarship, you didn't get a lot of money, but every penny I got, it was going in bandits, it was going in the bookies, it was disappearing. And then the football came to an end, and I went to
well,
university.
yeah,
And at that time, my girlfriend was pregnant, and we struggled to come to terms with that. And it was quite traumatic because we didn't really know how to tell people. We didn't know how to tell
yeah.
people, we're both quite young. And it was a roller coaster. And eventually everybody found out. We told people. And unfortunately, she went into labor really early, and Dylan was born, but unfortunately had a disease called Group B streptococcus, and he wasn't strong enough to fight it off, and died. And that was like 3 months after losing my football career. So the 3 months, the football career going, that was my dream as a child. To then losing, Dylan, it was just chaos. My head was falling off. I really struggled to manage my feelings and emotions at that time. And for me, I just didn't know what to do. At 18-year-old, lost little boy, basically still. My gambling then just went to a whole new level of just constant 24/7 thinking about it, the obsession just to do it. And yeah, that was the escape that came, and that was all through
So that was
uni.
your way of dealing with them really tragic circumstances.
Yeah, 100%. Just complete escape, avoidance. Let's not deal with the feelings. Let's not deal
Yeah,
with the emotions. Let's just avoid them completely. And at that time as well, 18, just gone past 18, student loans. I was still
yeah,
getting paid from the football club because of the
yeah,
contract I had and stuff like that. So money was coming at us. I got a part-time job in the gym.
yeah.
Um, the PFA have like a benevolent fund, so they can give you grants and stuff.
Right.
Honestly, I was getting my hands on as much money as I possibly could, and it was all just used to gamble. It wasn't used for any sort of any good, so to speak.
How and when did it come to a head with your gambling, Richie?
My parents started to question things like 21, 22.
Yeah,
And that was the first time that I reached out and went to counselling. But it was mainly because my mum had said, I think you should go and try some counselling for your gambling. Um, I did. Uh, it didn't really, I wasn't in the right place for it at the time, Ian, is the honest
yeah,
answer. And one of the things that they said was, do you want to stop gambling or do you want to control your gambling? I was like, oh, I'll have a bit of this control your gambling stuff,
yeah,
and I tried to do that, and that just wasn't my mentality. It wasn't the way that I lived my life. So it quickly went back to chaos, basically. Is the only way I can describe it. And I think at that time, because my parents had cottoned on to it, then I started being more secretive. I started trying to lie about it. I started trying to hide it. And that isolated us a little bit more because other people started to recognize it. So I started to do it in secret and hiding it. And I would gamble through the week and lose my money. And then to get over the fact that I'd lost my money, I'd lend some money off a pal and I'd go and get absolutely bladdered on a weekend. And
right.
that was when alcohol started to, not, I wouldn't say it was a massive problem, but I was like getting out like completely
Yeah.
comatose on a weekend as well to try and.
Because you'd run out of money to gamble, so the only thing you could escape into is getting blottoed, really.
Yeah, totally. I couldn't have the big chunks of money that I was using to gamble, but my mate would lend us 30 quid and I could get pissed on that. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? So
absolutely.
it
Yeah,
was much easier to use the alcohol at that point as well. And then them two things came intermittent with each other, probably for the next 10, 12 years,
right.
and eventually manifested itself into cocaine abuse as well. So cocaine, alcohol, gambling was a huge part of my 20s, and into my early 30s as well, which was absolute chaos.
And then your mental health obviously started to suffer severely. Um,
Massively, yeah. I mean, I've done a few geographicals, we call them. I moved around
yeah,
a little bit. I've moved to
yeah,
Manchester.
yeah,
Through all this, I will say, though, Ian, I was very highly functioning. I
yeah.
had good jobs. I was quite well respected. I was a personal trainer, worked in health and well-being, and then I moved to Manchester and started doing research at the university at Manchester. So on the outside, it looks like my life is all rosy and I'm
And that,
flying,
to
I'm
me,
doing really
that's
well.
always been part of real compulsive addicted gamblers have to have a life outside of that to carry on the addiction. You need to feed it. You need to keep it going and keep it secret. And by deflecting and making sure that you've got good jobs and you're also got a way of getting hold of money, which obviously you became very good at. But deep down, it feels like you're really suffering. So how did it all then come to a head, Richie?
So from about 28-year-old, I'd moved back to the Northeast. I'd got myself a new partner, and she became pregnant, and we'd had a few miscarriages before that, and we got past the 20-week scan, and that was the time when I should be going, sort your life out now, son. You've got a
Yeah,
kid on the way, and it was at that point that I thought, my life's so chaotic. I don't know how to manage it. Like the world would be a better place without us. And suicide ideation started, and I was hiding stuff from people all the time. I was lying all the time. I was very deceitful, and for about a 5, 6 year period, I just thought when the world gets too much, I'm just gonna jump off, And I had this fantasy of jumping off the Tyne Bridge in Newcastle for a long time. And I'd walk across the Tyne Bridge and I'd look and think, is it today? Nah, it's not today. And eventually, my partner, we'd had 2 kids now. You know, Theo was born in 2013, Oscar was born in 2015. She'd had enough. She kicked us out. All my own doing, you know, hold nothing against her for what she'd done. She was trying to look after the kids, and you know, she's done a great job at that. And my life was just chaos. You know, I'd then become self-employed as well. So I'd started a community interest company around health and well-being, again, to have that persona to the outside world that my life's really good and I'm helping all these people live a healthy life. And beneath that was just an absolute car crash happening. And then on the 19th of March 2018, I'd had a new partner. We'd had a bit of an argument, and I'd went to one of the only bookmakers that I wasn't self-excluded from, because they'd opened a new shop in Newcastle, basically. And I went and lost some money, and that was the day I thought, you know, I'm just going to throw myself off the bridge. So I went to Tyne Bridge, stood there for a while, started crying, and a stranger came up to us, and she said, I don't know what's going on for your son. You might feel like dying today, but you don't want to die for the rest of your life. And at that moment, I just cried. That was all I could do. You know, the emotion that I'd been suppressing for probably 15, 16 years just all kind of come out. And it was one of the first times I'd really cried, like really cried for me, not cried because I'd been caught or cried because somebody had questioned. It was like real raw emotion. And that started my journey of recovery. And my journey of recovery was incredible. That still is incredible. That's the reality. And from there, I got in touch with Sport and Chance and went and spent a few weeks at Sport and Chance, like four weeks at Sport and Chance.
Peter Kay in those days, was he about?
No, it was James. James was my therapist. Unfortunately, he died a couple of years ago, but incredible guy, you know, incredible guy. And basically, do you know what it was with James? You just couldn't bullshit him. That's the reality. He'd been there, he'd done it, he'd had the t-shirt, you know, at that time he was like 33 years clean and sober from heroin and alcohol. And on day one he questioned us, and I'd went there because of the gambling, because I'd lapsed with the gambling. And on day one he was like, tell us about your relationship with drinking drugs. And I was like, oh, it's all right. And he was like, tell us about it. And I was like, yeah, I use cocaine most days of my life. And he's like, is that normal? I was like, oh. And I remember just like, clear as day, and he said, what do you think? I just went, I'm fucked. That's literally what I said to him. He said, well, you're not. Now that you know, you can start treating all these things as the same. You know, they're all just ways to cope for you. And that was a big, massive turning point for me. And that started a personal development journey, which has just been incredible.
I mean, thanks for sharing that. Such a moving story, Richie. I mean, I've sort of heard glimpses of it, but I've heard you speak a lot of times. But obviously, we've done a lot of work together. But to hear it in its entirety, it's wow. Thank you very much for sharing that. And really well done for coming through it. So we've heard about the train crashes, you call it, the Celtic lifestyle, what it led to, where you led to. I know you now, and I've known you most of my life as somebody that works for Epic. Tell me a bit about that, what you guys do, and your journey within Epic.
I think it's really important. When I first got into recovery, I didn't know what to do, Ian. That's the reality. I was just like, go to Alcoholics Anonymous, go to Narcotics Anonymous, go to Gamblers Anonymous, just spend time around other people who are trying to be better. And then me being this obsessive kind of guy was like, well, where did 12-step recovery come from? Where did this come from? And I went on this journey of working with coaches and finding out who I really was. And I always talk about finding your authentic self. And that's what I had to do initially. So I didn't want to help anybody else. I just wanted to be focused on finding out about science, neuroscience, who I was. And that led us back to going to
So the first person you needed help, Richie, was yourself, wasn't it? And that's what 100%.
100%, yeah. You've got to look after yourself first and foremost. I see so many people coming into this space or coming into recovery, getting a few months abstinence and going, how can I do your job? How can I help other people? How can I become a counsellor? How can I become a coach? And I'm like, just focus on yourself, you know, and I'll get on to like how we help people.
And that's a really good point, just to spend a minute or so on that. I mean, we know the world we live in with lived experience, and everybody wants to do what we do, etc., which is a fantastic thing. You know, I mean, I'm the original voice of lived experience, started 25 years ago. But like you, we all have qualifications. And I think we need to be careful with people thinking that lived experience is a qualification on itself. without the journeys that we need to go on. So that's a really good point to
100%.
make.
I'm all for that. I think so many people say, but I've got lived experience. Why did I not get an interview? And I'm like, there's a skill set alongside,
Yeah,
like you need to be able to have empathy and
yeah,
understanding and non-judgment, and you need to be able to hold space for people. And there's so much more to working in the
absolutely.
space. And
Yeah.
what I discovered on my journey was if I cannot help myself, I cannot help anybody else. Like,
And that's
and that's
exactly
stubborn.
how it is, Richie, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So on this big journey, back at university, now back in therapy, I've probably
Yeah,
had thousands of hours of therapy, spent thousands of pounds on coaches all over the world to
yeah,
help us become this better version. And then I finished my degree and it was COVID. I was still running my own business and I thought, you know what it is, now's a good time to transition into this space a little bit, hopefully.
yeah.
And I always had this goal of like running my own personal development program for people who'd suffered gambling harm. And somebody said, oh, I'm sure there's some jobs going at Epic Restart. Like, why don't you apply for one? So had a conversation with Paul, never met him before in my life, Paul Buck, and he was like,
How
yeah,
did you
there's some.
find Paul? Just because through an advert?
Somebody had said he was looking to start a charity, and I didn't
Right,
even know who he was at all,
right.
and I sent him a tweet on Twitter and said, oh, I've heard you're going to start a charity. Can you tell us a bit about it? And we had a conversation, and he said, I'll apply for some jobs. So I applied for a job and applied for a mentor role. At that
Yeah,
time, that's what we were in the very
yeah, I
early
remember
days of
that. Yeah,
Epic.
yeah,
So I applied for that, managed to get that role alongside Steve and Mark, who are just two
yeah,
incredible guys and have got their own
yeah,
stories. And the three of us really complemented each other when we started because we're very
yeah,
different people. Sharon was obviously the CEO at the time, and she
yeah,
really kind of nurtured us a little bit at the beginning, which was fantastic. And then what we had is this off-the-shelf program, and because of the work I'd done, I was like, we need to be much more person-centered. And eventually I ended up becoming the program manager and I changed the program a little bit. So it was very person-centered. The person was always at the center of everything we'd done. And it was about meeting the individual where they're currently at and helping them create a plan, an action plan to achieve their goals, whatever their goals are. You
yeah,
know, we'd done a bit of research, we'd done a bit of needs analysis. And what we found was that lack of confidence, lack of self-worth, health and well-being, isolation, um, were the biggest things that people were struggling with when they came to us. And at this time, I mean, it was called aftercare. And I
yeah.
don't really like the term aftercare, if I'm honest, because I think it's a recovery journey, and I just think there should be multiple pathways to recovery for people because there's no one size fits all. So this is where we are anyway. We changed the program a little bit. We all qualify as recovery coaches and we use coaching as the modality of support for people. Um, in that, what we decided to do was to add in like these in-person personal development workshops, I want to call them. And
Yeah,
these were, in some fantastic places, but they were about helping people open their eyes to their potential,
yeah,
about how good they can actually be. And people were going on these workshops and going, wow, my life isn't just about not gambling anymore. It's about creating a new life. It's about finding a new job. It's about
yeah.
building new relationships. And I think that's the missing link sometimes in recovery is everybody wants to help people stop gambling, but once people stop gambling, it was like, well, what next?
Yeah, I'm
you know, and
totally on board with what you're saying there, mate. I very much believe, like you, that in the whole recovery journey or
yeah,
the whole treatment journey, and like things that you guys do and some other, organisations out there, all become part of the same story, which
yeah,
is great. The way we all integrate and work together and refer into each other, and that's how it should be.
yeah, definitely. It is that like full journey, isn't it? And
Yeah,
what I think Epic do really well is that it's long term. You can have 4 months of one-to-one coaching, and then you might go off and you might, implement some of the stuff you've learned, but there's still a community there. There's an online community, an online app. In the app, we've got guest speakers, we've got podcasts, we've got, facility, lived experience talks. There's loads of resources in there to help people manage money, to build relationships, to build resilience. And it's all there just at the click of a button. So it's that thing you can dip in and out of. And if
that
at any
that's
point,
to me that's so important, Richie. I mean, I'm a big believer in, when people come to us, they become part of our family, and it sounds very much that Epic have got the same sort of standards and realizations and dreams for people.
yeah, and it's about just being there when they need it.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
don't have to be engaged in everything all of the time, but Recovery is a funny old thing, and we know that it's not plain sailing. A lot of people think, oh, I've stopped gambling, my problems go away. Actually, your problems intensify tenfold
Yeah,
because you then don't have the coping strategy that you've used for however many years to deal with the chaos that's going on in your head. So
absolutely.
to try and unpick all of that stuff, sometimes you need a little bit of help, and that's okay,
Mm,
because none of us have done this on our own. That's the reality.
absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
the reality, and I think the more collaborative we can be in the space, the more the support we can offer to individuals, the better chance that individual's got. And they have
It's
to
really
remain at the
interesting
center
hearing
of
you
that.
talk, Richie, because I believe that you believe that being who you are now and doing what you do now is also part of your own recovery.
100%, 100%. I mean, so behind here, I've got my 5 values on the wall, and one
Yeah,
of them values is um. So I'll tell you the story behind it. My first
um,
story was like, I want to help other people.
yeah,
That was what I said, and my coach at the time said was, why do you want to help other people, Richie? And I was like, oh, just because, like, cause I've been through some shit, and I want to help. He was like, yeah, you're full of shit. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, tell us why you really want to help other people. And I was like, well, makes us feel good. He's like, all right, there's one thing. And what else? I
yeah,
was like, well, I could get a job doing it, and, I could build a career. And he was like, yeah, go on, keep going, because they're all good things. And you're allowed to have them things, and you're allowed to say them things. But if you can't help yourself first, then you can't help other people. And that's where all
yeah,
that come from. So
yeah,
my value now is help other people to help myself.
yeah,
Because through that whole process, I go and teach people, I run workshops, I do talks. If I don't know it inside out, I kind of teach it to somebody else.
yeah,
And then the other thing is be the example you want to see in other people. And that's how I live my life now, is being the
yeah.
example. So anything I teach, anything I talk about, anything I'm mentioning here, I do it. I do it every day because
Yeah.
for me, the only way to make progress is to take action, is to move forward and take action.
Listening to, I'm one of the witnesses that have seen what you're saying. It's not bullshit and it's not full of shit like we've been talking about, and that it's really real now and really good for you. Um, Richard, it's a really powerful story, as I said. So, to sort of finish up with, what would your advice to anyone who might be struggling with gambling addiction in general, or any addiction in general, specifically gambling? What would your advice be to people out there now listening to you and listening to the really powerful emotional journey you've been on? And to be honest, in your own words, are still on.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing for me was to have the courage to ask for help, because
Yeah.
that was really, really difficult. I thought it was a weakness. I thought asking for help would be a weakness and I should be able to sort it out myself. But the reality is you can't. You cannot do this on your own. So
So, how do you
find,
find that courage? How did you find that courage to ask for help?
um, I think it was, for me, it was an ultimatum of, do I jump off the bridge or do I ask for help? That's
Yeah,
where it took me. But I would really encourage people that you don't need to get to that point.
yeah.
You don't need to get to that point to ask for help. You can ask for help at any point. And if you find that actually your life is a little bit unmanageable, ask for some help. You don't
Yeah,
have to
and do you
have
know what? Just to back
you
up
know,
what you're saying, as the years have grown since COVID, it's even easier to get help because there's so many
yeah,
more of us in this what we call the National Gambling Support Network, amongst other organisations that are outside of that. So reaching out and asking for help is going to be listened to. You're going to be acted on. You're going to be received into this community a lot quicker, and there's a lot more of us. So there's always going to be somebody there for you if you're listening to this and need some help and support.
yeah, 100%. I think the other thing I want to mention, Ian, is there should be multiple pathways to recovery as well. Like in the National Gambling Support Network, there's lots of organizations, they all work slightly different ways. And if something doesn't work for somebody, there's another way. I speak to
Absolutely.
people all the time and they go, oh, I tried CBT, I tried counseling, I tried this and didn't work. I'm like, but you're not in the same place now. You're in a different
Yeah,
place, You never stand in the same river twice because the river's always moving. And that's exactly the
100%.
same with life. So give it a go. And if it
And
doesn't
that's
work, try
and
something else.
exactly what you're saying, Richie. That's the advantage of having what we call a support network. Because within our support network, there's even people that can support you outside of our network. But
Yeah.
we're likely to know. So come and talk to us. That's what we're really trying to say, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And it just takes courage. It really does. And once you do take that first step, it's nothing like you ever thought it was going to be like. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy, because it's not. It's hard work. It's got to be hard work. But if you keep showing up and you keep doing the work, then you really have a chance.
Richie, the one you've mentioned courage a lot. The one thing you've got in abundance is lots of courage. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning. I consider you a mate now, in inverted commas, and it's always good to be in your company. Great to listen to you tell your story, Richie. So well done, mate, and thanks for coming on our podcast.
Thanks for having us, Ian. Really appreciate it. Cheers.
If you or someone you know is affected by gambling-related harm, please call us on 01273 833 722 or visit our website www.breakeven.org.uk. Alternatively, please call the National Gambling Helpline on 0808 8020 133. Please ensure to like and subscribe to all our social media channels and keep this message out there. Thank you.